Hello everyone and welcome to the next episode of the Voron Zero series. In the last episode I talked about wanting to do a skirt button / display mod, and I also started printing the Nevermore Micro. Well, I will be doing both of those today and probably a bit more, but this will probably be the last episode of the Voron Zero before I move. And also before I begin the video, sorry about the lighting today. I was just about to start filming and set up all the lights and everything, and the power went out. And it's the 6th time it went out in the past 3 days, so yeah, anyway, so it has to be this way today. Hopefully it will get fixed and the later clips will look better than this, but who knows. But anyway, we're going to start with the Nevermore Micro. So as you might have seen in the active carbon testing video, I already have my Nevermore Micro assembled, but I will be redoing this completely today. And the reason is the print quality on this wasn't great. Like, you can see this huge gap in here, and insert Donald Trump voice. Anyway, yeah, things like that. And yeah, it also doesn't look that great in some parts. Like, there's these accent pieces on this side, and they're supposed to be on this side as well. They're not visible, etc. Like, yeah, I just want to reprint this. This did not affect my testing in that video, though, I should mention, because I intentionally covered this gap with duct tape, so no air leaked or anything like that. So that's not a problem today, but as I said, I wanted to redo that, and I have all the parts printed and ready here. So I will be transferring the fan from the old Nevermore Micro to the new one, and I will also just show you how to assemble this as well, since I'm already doing this. So yeah, I guess let's just start with that. So the first thing you want to do is insert the magnets and the threaded inserts. There are 2 threaded inserts you have to insert, and assuming you're building this for a Voron, you probably know how to do that already. You just push them in with the soldering iron, and the power is back, which is great. Yeah, and then 4 magnets on this piece and 4 magnets on this piece, and they just snap together like this. And well, that's how the mechanism works. You just slide the lids on top, which I'll show you how to do that in a second, but let's just transplant the fan from this, and I also want to show you how you need to cut them. So here is the fan. This is actually a 50-15 fan that I chopped up, that you need to do for this mod. For the dual fan version, you don't have to chop it, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that, check the GitHub page, but I think you don't have to do that. You just have to remove the top half of the fan housing. But for the single fan version, which is the one you can use with the Voron Zero, you have to chop the fan like this. And there is a guide for this that's printable, and I used that when I was chopping this up. And it's basically just a circle that shows you the maximum size fan that will fit in here. The way you do this is pretty simple, so I'm just going to demonstrate removing the top half on a 15-15 fan here. 50-15, sorry. You just need to remove some clips. This is a GDS time fan, so this has 3 clips. How many clips there are might depend on your fan choice, but yeah, it's usually 3, but can depend on the fan you choose. So 1, and don't try to pull it apart further than this before removing the rest if you want to be able to put your fan back together, but I guess in this case it doesn't matter. So yeah, there we go. It's that simple, removed. And here, then you just use that guide and chop this up. I use side cutters, and well, this is what we have after that. And this will go in here. You have to glue it in place, so let's just grab the glue. I forgot to grab that. So I'd normally recommend using hot glue for this. It's safer than this thing. This isn't the sort of glue that you want to inhale, but yeah, does the job, and you don't need to wait for it to heat up. That's why I'm going to use this, but again, just use hot glue, as I say, not as I do. It's just safer, and well, it works just as well, and in fact it's easier to remove, which is a bonus if you have to ever remove that fan. It was a pain to remove it from the old Nevermore Micro, and it also sets quickly, which is also nicer. But anyway, now it's time to put the fan in. Now with this, you have to be careful about the wire. You don't want the wire hitting the fan blades, otherwise your fan won't turn. So when you're putting this in here, make sure it's not caught on anything. And you can see that there is a wire guide here, so make sure your wires are facing that way, and just slide this in down there, push it in, and then make sure again you're not hitting the fan blades, and route the cable, and there we go, it's spinning freely, and this is what you want to do. Now next step is the lid. So again, grab your new lid. There is a version of this without this grill part, it's just a hole that's also on the repository. I chose this because I think it looks better, but yours might look different, that's the point. Just slide it on here. This one is a little trickier to slide because of this bit that extends below the air ducts, but you can get it in there. Just align one corner, then push it and bend it so that the other corner sits, and then push it in place, and well, there we go, it's that simple. And then you just use your M3 screws. There we go, those two are in there. Now there are two more screw holes here and here. They don't go into threaded inserts, and I've seen no mention of these on any of the pages for Nevermore, so I'm going to assume those are optional. But if you're like me and like to populate screw holes, you can just use the screws there as well. There we go, it's now fully assembled, this side of it. This side, the filter cartridge side, you need to fill this with the pellets. Don't use granules or anything, they're too airflow restrictive, so use pellets. The reason I don't have them right now is, well, if you watched that video you already know I don't have the correct type that is acid free, and if you use active carbon that's washed with acid or activated with acid, the results are terrible. For more information you can check out that video, but yeah, for now I'm going to just assemble this like this, and the actual testing of this will be after I move. Lastly, there is the mounting solution. I didn't reprint this, I'm just going to use the same brackets I printed on the old Nevermore Micro, but they are these pieces. They're attached with just two screws hidden in here and here, and you just mount this to the Voron 0 in this case. If you have a different printer, the brackets will look different, but yeah, you just mount it to the printer and then screw this in and then put the filter cartridge on. That's how this works. So I'll be back with the mount, since it's a bit of a pain to screw things in to the Voron 0 because of the nuts and the extrusions, as you know, so BRB. Oh, and this might be worth covering. If you want to insert nuts to the 1515 extrusions used in the Voron 0 and you don't have the ends easily accessible, one trick for doing that is just drilling the extrusion with a 6mm drill bit. That's wide enough for the nuts to fall through. If you want, you can go a little larger than that even, and do this where it won't be visible. In my case, this will be covered by the Nevermore Micro, so you won't see this. And yeah, you can easily slide in and out nuts. That's just an alternative to post-insertion T-nuts, which isn't an option with 1515 extrusions, unfortunately, but there are ways around that at least. And here it is mounted, so all that's left to do is route the wire, which I will do through this little gap here, the extrusion slot that's below that panel. It's a little small, but I did it before, it's doable. And the next step is obviously putting this on, which should have your filter material, as I said, and well, that's it. So it's a fairly simple installation. I'll do the wire routing off camera, so we can move on to the next thing I want to do in this video, which is the skirt buttons. I showed this in the last episode, but just as a recap, this is what I'm talking about: skirt buttons and display. So this is a Voron 0 display that's on the Voron hardware GitHub. It's designed by one of the Voron design team members. I'm not really sure who, but anyway, you can find this design, and it is sold by FiStack. So I'll link it in the description below as well. But normally there's a different mount for this that sticks in front of the printer at a I think 45-degree angle, and yeah, I'm not really a big fan of that. And in my previous Voron 0 and also on my 2.4, I had skirt buttons and on top of having the display, and they were really useful. So that's the idea behind this mod as well. So this mod adds 3 buttons on each side, so 6 buttons in total, and the middle that display, which is an OLED display. So not the great best looking display, but yeah, with the Voron 0 obviously we're limited by space, so I think that's a
fairly good option. You can see the slots here behind these, between the button here and that cutout. There will be the tactile switches, and if I get rid of the buttons, yeah, you can see how this is going to work. And yeah, you can see it will sit in here, and then the buttons will be glued on top, and yeah, that's how it works. I did some print optimization since I last showed this, so this thing, it's just for printability. But yeah, this is the design, as I said, so let's get to printing it.
The new front skirts are now printed and mounted to the printer, as you can see, and I will show you these from the front side as well, but just wanted to show you the behind the scenes, the wiring, etc. So wanted to start with that. Obviously, as I said, we will move on to the front look, and I will also demonstrate these, but yeah, I just wanted to show you the wiring, how this works. So for the buttons, unfortunately, there isn't much you can see because it's hidden behind hot glue. The reason for that is if you don't do that, you're only relying on the solder that's soldered to the legs of the tactile switches and the wire, and that's kind of weak, and I found that those can come loose. So I like to just use some hot glue. But basically, if you want to know how this is wired, one pole of the tactile switch is connected to ground, the other one is connected to a GPIO pin, and they're all running to the duet Wi-Fi here. You can also see the display here, and you can also see that I had to chop parts of the skirts here, unfortunately. The problem is, well, as you can see from that blue PCB, I didn't account for the height of the OLED display's PCB there, and yeah, the lips on the skirts were hitting that, and yeah, that was obviously causing the problem. So I had to chop them off. I will fix that for the released version of these skirts. It's a very easy fix to do in CAD, so yeah, don't worry about that. The ones linked in the description below, they'll be fine, but in this case I had to do this. Fortunately, in my case, it won't be visible anyway. The other side is hidden by an extrusion, and this side will be hidden by the bottom panel, so it doesn't really matter, but yeah, it's still not a nice feeling, I guess. Also had to modify the display PCB here. So the problem here is, you can see this micro USB connector, and you can see that if I connected the micro USB cable there, it would hit the wires for the switches here. So I noticed there were unpopulated pin header things on the PCB, so I just soldered the pin header there, and also removed the plastic bits in that pin header, just so there's a little more length for the DuPont female headers to you know, grab the pins, because I also had to bend them, because, well, you can see the power supply, I can obviously have something vertical there. So yeah, it's just connected here, the colored wires there, that's just a USB cable. Hopefully I got the colors right on these. USB color coding can be a bit messy, but if they followed the spec, it should be correct. But I've seen cables that don't follow that, so like I've seen white and green swapped for some reason, for example, so you never know. But yeah, it's just a USB cable I chopped up, and hopefully it will work. It's an LG branded one, so I don't know, maybe it's higher quality, but who knows. So yeah, I guess we will see. So yeah, this is the wiring on the backside for this. Before closing the panels and testing the buttons, there are two more things I needed to do, and I just did. One, I checked if the buttons can be detected by the firmware by just sending echo messages, and well, they are, all of them work. And B, I also wired in a relay for the LED lighting for the internals. It was normally just wired to the power supply here, and that was temporary. On the previous Voron 0.0 setup, I also used a relay, but that one was controlled through the Raspberry Pi. It was still Klipper, it was just using the Klipper MCU on Raspberry Pi, but yeah, this time I wired it to the duet Wi-Fi, and it is wired to the probe output on the duet Wi-Fi. Normally, in a lot of setups, including mine, you should be able to use the heater output on your controller board, whatever you have. And in my case, I do have a spare heater free. Unfortunately, I am missing a screw on that terminal, so I couldn't use that, which is the reason I had to use a relay. But otherwise, yeah, you can usually just get away with not having to use a relay. But either setup works, and I actually have a video on this, so if you are interested in that, you can check it out. But yeah, now that it's working, I can issue the LED toggle command, which is something I wrote, which turns off the lights, and hit it again, and it should turn on. So that's how this works. The relay is configured for normally closed, so yeah, the lights turn on when the printer turns on, when the relay isn't getting a signal. And when I activate the relay with that command, you can see that the light on the relay turned on, relay PCB, and yeah, that's what's keeping the LEDs off. So that's just made that way so that the LEDs turn on when the printer is on. I could also do that in firmware, but firmware config, but yeah, this is just easier. So yeah, pretty happy with how that works as well. So again, now time to put the panels on, flip the printer around, configure the buttons, and I'll be back with the demonstration of the buttons and the display. And there we go, the buttons and the display are now mounted, and I've also configured the firmware for these, so they are working properly. I'm going to demonstrate a few of the buttons and just go through the menu of the display. Probably not all of it, but just a bit of it. But let's start with the buttons. So for example, this button is the LED toggle that I just showed. So if I hit that, you can hear the relay. Well, I don't know if you can hear it through the microphone, but you can see the lights turn off and on. So yeah, it is definitely working. This is a preheat button for ABS. You can also do that through the display, but the advantage of this is you can just hit it and it will heat the bed to 100 degrees and the nozzle to the 240 degrees, which is yeah, basically what I print ABS at, or at least ABS Plus at. So if I hit that, as you can see from the display and from the hot end fan noise as well, they both turned on and they will reach temperature eventually. Also should show you the menu. So you reach the menu by hitting this once, so it's one of those rotary encoder plus push button ones, and here we can go through the menu. Unfortunately, I don't know if this is specific to my unit or this is designed this way, but for some reason you have to turn the knob the other way around to scroll the menu, which is real annoying. I like to scroll this to the right to go down and left to go up, which is usually how it is done, but yeah, I guess it still works at least. But yeah, here we can see a bunch of menus, Octoprint, control, temperature, filament, setup, and that's it. Octoprint here is really useful for my setup because I am using Octoprint, which means I can't really pause and resume using the usual pause and resume commands. And this lets me pause and resume prints. It actually works. I tried this, so yeah, in the middle of the print, for example, if I run out of filament and need to swap it, or if I notice a clog or something in time, yeah, I can just pause the print here, which is very useful. Control has just the homing stuff and moves, etc. Also fans, temperature, again what you expect. But here, for example, we can turn these off, turning the knob the opposite way to what makes logical sense. But whatever. Maybe there's the off button down there. Actually, I probably should have checked, but anyway. They are now set to off. There is a cool down button. Anyway, yeah, filament. It's just retract, extrude for doing filament swaps basically. And I don't know what's in setup, so let's see. Config, pit tuning, etc. I'd do these through the terminal if I were you, but if you want to, they're there at least, so that's something. And the main display, as you can see, obviously has the temperatures, the fan feed rate, etc., and the progress bar. If you are using Octoprint like I am, for you to see the progress bar of the print there, you need to install a plugin called M73 Print Progress or something. If it isn't that, I'll put it on the screen. If you don't do that, the print, etc., everything works fine. The progress bar on Octoprint works fine. You just don't see the progress on that display, and that's it. With mainsail, fluid, etc., I think it will just show up there. I don't think you need to do anything special for those, but for Octoprint, like usual, since it's not really designed for this setup, you need to do some work. But yeah, it's overall it's still relatively easy to do. This is a NeoPixel that's on the PCB back there, the display PCB. You can probably use it to display status things like, I don't know, printing for yellow, finished for green, failed for red, or maybe e-stop, I don't know, something like that. You can probably do something with that, but I'm just going to leave it stock. But I did drill that hole in the, well, not drill, design that hole in the skirt for that, so if I want to use it, it's there. So now that this is done, we're basically near the end of the episode, and well, it will probably be the last episode in the next few months, but there is one more thing I wanted to do, and that is fixing this cable mess on the side. So yeah, here we can see I just used some old 3D printed clips I have, just zip tied them in place. These are the wires that are running from the webcam and the LED lighting on top. Unfortunately, because of the way this printer is designed, I can't route it in the back because, well, that PCB, and if I wasn't using the PCB, the panel and then the motors, they just block the path, and even if I somehow snuck them through, they'd look really ugly in the inside. This side, it's very tidy. I mean, you can see the wires, but it's not too bad. It would be much uglier if I ran it in the middle like that. But yeah, now the printer looks ugly on the outside, and this is something I want to fix. And the idea I have is just to replace the two middle panel clips I have here, the same ones that are used here, and design a wire guide that can hide these behind that and hold the panel in place. That's the idea, so I'll be back with that.
So here is the idea. Well, the second revision of this, and skirts took many revisions as well, but anyway, here is the idea, just as I described, just a cable cover. The revision that I just mentioned is just making these a bit taller. They weren't tall enough to accommodate for the relatively thick USB cable that's for the webcam. So yeah, here we can, again, you can see the design is just the same sort of clip. These are 2mm taller than the standard, so they're not ideal in that way, but I think they still look fine. I also had to modify this one as well, since you know, I have to route the cable through that as well. And here to here it won't be covered, but that's a relatively short distance, and I don't think it will look that ugly. So this is the design, so let's print it and mount it to the printer.
And here are the new wire covers printed and mounted, and as you can see, it starts from here, goes all the way to here. So I just replaced these three parts, or you know, the equivalents of these three on this side. And yeah, there are some built-in cable channels in there that route the wires, just like I showed in the CAD. This is the earlier version that without the channel that was deep enough, so you can see the idea here anyway. So yeah, cables exit here. You can't see much of any of it really. It routes under here until here, and in this bit, yeah, you can see the wires, because I don't think I can think of a clever way of hiding that there, but at least until there, the cables are routed behind the plastic printed part, so not much of it is visible.
That's all I wanted to do in this video, so yeah, that's it for the Voron Zero for now. We will continue after I move if we can. I will definitely try to bring the printer with me, but I don't know the details of the move. That's the problem. That's why I can't say for sure, but I'll definitely try. But yeah, the reason I'm doing this voiceover thing is I was initially planning on releasing a channel update sort of video today and then release this video 2 weeks later. I kind of rushed the editing of this just to be able to finish this, but yeah, the reason I didn't make that channel update video is because I also wanted to finalize where I'm going to move exactly, like the state of in the US, for example, and when I'm going to move and stuff like that. But unfortunately, my hand that I've been whining about for a while, well, it hasn't been any better, and which is kind of the reason I've delayed it so far. I was initially hoping to move in October, but yeah, I finally got to a point where I needed surgery, so I had surgery on I think it was 26th of October or something like that. And yeah, since then I wasn't able to do much on the printers. I'm mostly just resting it, but now I'm supposed to use my hand and arm in general, just don't lift anything heavy and still have it wrapped in that elastic thing and stuff like that. So yeah, I just wanted to say, since I already mentioned this before, I know some people might care, so yeah, I'm fine. It's not any better compared to how it was before the surgery, compared to after the surgery, which is probably just inflammation and stuff like that. But it's way better than that. But I guess we will see how long it takes for it to heal. That's also affecting the move, as I said, because as I said, I'm not really supposed to lift anything heavy. Unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of waiting the full recovery time, which is 3 to 6 months, and the doctor also said I might need a repeat surgery, a more complicated one, instead of just a decompression and complete transposition. But yeah, that's only if it doesn't heal. Unfortunately, as I said, I don't have the luxury to wait that long. I have to move before February, so the plan right now is to move in December, but might be January. I won't wait longer than that. Once I know when I'm moving exactly and where to I'm moving exactly, because even that part I don't really know. Like, I don't have anything lined up in the US. I'll basically go there and try to find a job, which isn't ideal, but at the same time, things are terrible where I live right now, so it will definitely better than that, and I think I have enough to survive in that period of time. So anyway, I'll figure out the details of that, and I'll make that channel update video, and talk about when I'm moving, where I'm moving, also future content on the channel during the move and after the move. That I will also make that video after I've talked to a few moving companies. I haven't done that yet because I don't know where I'm moving to exactly, but my understanding is they're usually shipped by sea and it usually takes a few months. So there are some ideas I have for filling that gap, like first of all pre-recording some videos, but on top of that workshop build logs and stuff like that in my new place, and things like that. So there will definitely be content, but I'll go more into the details of that later. In the near future, other than the channel update video, I will also continue the TinyM series. There are a few changes coming to that. I will print that initially out of just ABS. That's, if you didn't follow that series, it's meant to be a high temperature printer, which means it shouldn't be ABS, but I will start with ABS and then replace the parts after I move. That's the plan, because my Voron 2 also isn't in working condition, and I want to work on those simultaneously, which means yeah, basically it has to be ABS initially. That will also give me the opportunity to test fit the parts I've printed, so that's also nice. But it will eventually definitely be replaced with high temperature parts, because that's what that printer is designed for. My TinyM specifically, not the normal TinyM. Yeah, so there will be videos on the TinyM and the Voron, and there are a few shorter, more quicker videos that I've recorded that haven't really released, and I don't even know if I'm going to release them, but I think that topic is more worth talking about in the channel update. So anyway, that's it for this video. I've rambled long enough in this end bit anyway, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave me a like down below, and thanks for watching.